Lotargar friends, hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Orca Mode workout. And today is Dynamic Effort Squat and Deadlift Day, and slight improvements. A couple minor things I wanted to work on here. I went ahead and bumped another 2.5 pounds on the speed boxes. And as I got more sets in, one of the things I wanted to work on was getting a slightly wider stance, because I know that for me, the box squats, I still use a fairly narrow stance for boxes compared to a lot of people, because I just feel stronger with a narrow stance. But I do know that I will get more hamstring and more hip and everything else involved if I can get the stance out wider and really focus on rotating those knees out on the concentric rep. And so I started with my normal stance the first few sets of the 12, and as I went, I slowly tried to work it out more and put a more conscious effort into it. So you'll notice these first couple of sets, they look like they've looked for the past few weeks, because again, I do want to keep that knee back a little bit more. We do want to get more hamstring and everything else involved. And the reason for that, yes, I understand the quads are the primary movers on a back squat, right? We all understand that. However, training yourself to get more muscles involved, if you can train yourself over time to use more hamstring and more hip and everything else, you should be able to move more weight. And what we're looking for with all these big movements, whether we're looking at increasing our maxes or we're looking at increasing hypertrophy, ideally we want to get more muscles involved, right? You don't want to think like a bodybuilder. If you're really trying to get really jacked and really strong, you have to lose that bodybuilder mindset on big movements. You have to be thinking in terms of how can I get more muscles involved, not less. You're not trying to quote unquote isolate anything. We're trying to get everything involved. All right, the more muscles you get involved, the more weight you can lift, and of course the more tension you're putting on muscles, so the more hypertrophic potential, all of that. That's what we're looking for. Combine all those things. So with my box squats, I am trying to work on that. And I know that the wider stance is a weak link for me. And if it's weak for me, it suggests that I have weak muscles that need to continue to be strengthened. So that's really what I wanted to focus on this. And again, if we're going to do small movements, if you want to have a muscle, one specific muscle that you want to bring up and do extra work for, that's fine. But you don't want to try to do that with your big movements. That's not the goal of our big movements, whether it's your max effort lifts or your dynamic effort lifts or your repetition lifts, big multi-joint exercises. You should be thinking of, hey, how can I get more muscles involved? And sometimes that means adjusting a grip or a stance or whatever you have to do in order to get the weaker muscles involved more. Right? And it could be that you're weak in those positions because some of those muscles that get more involved are weak for you. So therefore you're weaker than you should be. Whereas if those individual muscles were stronger, you would probably be stronger with that adjustment in footing or grip or anything else. And we need to think in those terms. Look, if you're trying to get as strong as possible and you're trying to get as orky as possible, you really need all those little small muscles to be stronger. We need to be strong at everything. You need to be strong on narrow, wide, everything. Get strong at every movement pattern. And you really need to get rid of those weaknesses. And it's kind of like I've been saying to you guys with other videos. You know, you need to find your weak links and train them until they are no longer a weakness, right? Train your weakest lift until it's your best lift. Then you find your new weak lift and do the same thing. I mean, that's what I did with the standing press. I was terrible at standing presses. Like legitimately, I was disproportionate when I was younger. Back when I had a 400 plus bench in my 20s, my overhead press sucked. Now I put a lot of focus into it. And look what I did last year. I got it up past 225. Now I train it all the time. I train it as a primary lift, because it was a weak link and it's a basic movement pattern. But we can take that further with things like footing on squats and deadlifts, you know. So tell people, even on the deadlift, even though I like conventional, I prefer conventional, I'm training sumo, I'm training both. So train deficit deadlifts. You get strong at everything, guys. And if you're bad at a foot placement, there's probably a reason for it. You probably have a muscle weakness. You have a muscle imbalance that you need to address. Again, how are you going to be strong when you have weak links? All right. How are you going to be strong if you can't be strong with every movement? You can bench, but you can't overhead press. You can narrow stance squat, but you can't wide stance squat. Or you can sumo deadlift, but you can't conventional. I mean, you need to be strong at everything. Or you can't do heavyweight on a weighted chin up. Come on. You get strong at everything. Get strong at everything, and that's the point. So for these, I am varying the stance a little bit. I started narrower and I worked out wider as I went. And if you guys look, you'll notice there's a couple inches difference between the first couple sets and the last couple in terms of how close my foot is to the edge of that rack. I worked on getting a little wider and focusing on getting those knees rotated out on the concentric, because that's one of the things I noticed. Like I would get, my knees would start to cave and I would get that vagus happening even on the speed work with the boxes when I would go too wide. So I need to work on that. And again, that's a sign of possible hip weakness, possible glute weakness, which I shouldn't have, but in those positions I do. So again, it's focusing on that, getting those knees out, driving them out, rotating them out, coming out of the hole. So we're going to get better at these box squats, because notice my back squat is improving. I've been building my back squat off of mostly box squats again. It's working just fine, isn't it? You know, I took the advice of a number of experts out there who told me good mornings and box squats aren't great, who really had amazing credentials and were good coaches who I listened to, and I parroted some of that. And look, my squat floundered. I couldn't even get my squat back to 500. I used a lot of those lifts to get my squat back up into the high fours and then later break 500 again. I quit doing them, and then even at a higher body weight doing Bulgarian, I only got back up to 485. All right. Well, I know historically that those lifts have worked well for me. So I used box squats to rebuild my squat originally to get it back up over 500 after spending 10 months in bed sick. Not being able to even squat my body, having to hold on the back of a chair. So I'm going to do what I know works, in spite of what some of those experts say. You know, that's fine. They're evidence-based. They're experts. But I also have to go off my own practical experience, observing other athletes, observing myself. Those exercises do work for me. They do bring up my lifts. They do bring up my lifts. So, speed pulls, sumo deadlift. I started slightly wider on these, and then towards the end, I brought my footing in a little narrower. Why? Got to pull the weight a little further. Again, getting more pop, having to pull a longer stroke. And again, getting closer to a similar stance to what I need on those box squats. Get some carryover. But speed pulls, we got one more rep today with this weight. I increased the weight last time because I'd done 12 with a 15 pounds lighter, 12 speed pulls. And then last week, we only got 8 of these, right? I got 8, and then my thumbs really were just so lit up I couldn't get more. I got 9 today, and then my thumbs were just totally on fire. Now, I'm probably going to start working in additional grip work soon. But for now, this is going to limit my total volume. But this is a lot of volume every week that I'm subjecting my grip to, and my thumbs and everything else. So we're going to get the hook grip up. And again, I've got a few naysayers who are saying, oh, yeah, you shouldn't let that limit you. Well, why not? That's fine. It also limits my total training volume, because on deadlifts, I tend to go crazy. I love deadlifts. Like if I don't have something to limit my deadlifts, I will train myself into the ground. Like you guys really don't understand. If it comes to strapping, I get to strap on every deadlift, I'll do 20 sets. Right? I'll do 20 sets because I don't have any sense when it comes to deadlifts. I love the deadlift so much that I would do 10 sets of deadlifts 7 days a week if I could recover from it. I literally love deadlifts. Like you don't understand. For me, this limits me in a good way. So if the hook grip becomes my limiting factor on my deadlifts, it'll keep my training volume in check, because I'll train myself into the ground on deadlifts. Like I literally love this lift. Like if people told me you could only do one lift the rest of your life, one of those weird scenarios, it would be deadlifts. But if I had unlimited recovery, oh my God. So for me, that's a good thing, and that's fine. So this is where you have to understand yourself when it comes to nuances in training. And I'm actually starting to learn to love sumo too. Like I loved the conventional deadlift, but now that I'm doing sumo all the time, I love it also. I love deficit deadlifts. I love any form of deadlift. I just love pulling a heavy weight off the floor. I just love it. To me, it's fun. It's exciting. So my thumbs could only handle 9 today, and then I had to stop. I almost wanted to go do a 10th, but I'm like, I'm going to end up really blistering the hell out of my thumbs. This is all they can take. I can go do some extra grip work later, right? Again, you got to watch this stuff. That's how enthusiastic I get about pulling. So it's a good thing, though. So we got one more rep today. The goal, when we can get to 12 with this weight for speed pulls, and my grip can handle it, then we go up weight again, right? We go up weight again. But I think 9 with 445 for speed pulls with the hook grip, I think that's good. That's good for today. I think that's good for the day. And I still need to go do my glute ham raises, which I will do after I record this. So, because this is plenty of training footage, just so you guys know, after max effort day on Monday, I did 3 sets of glute ham raises. I got 10 on the first 2, and I think like my hamstrings cramped by like the 7th rep on the 3rd one. I'm going to see if I can get 3 sets of 10 today, right? I'm going to try for 3 sets of 10 with just body weight. Went ahead and did normal good mornings. I didn't feel like doing the safety squat bar today. It feels like it puts a lot of pressure on my neck. It ends up being neck training. It ends up being neck training, but it's like, let me just go decently deep with a barbell. I can go a little heavier, did 3 sets of 8 on these with 185. Again, just to get a good morning in, because I feel like a good carryover, and these still help your thoracic erectors, right? Yeah, the safety bar squat or the safety bar good mornings, they do pretty good. They're actually really good for thoracic erectors, but these are also, again, as long as you're getting a decent range of motion, going fairly deep at the top, your erectors are getting worked. And again, trying to bulletproof everything. Like I do hyperextensions every day, I do abs every day, doing these good mornings, different forms of good mornings, rotating through them, doing glute ham raises. I really want my erectors, spinal erectors, thoracic erectors, hamstrings. I want these things to be as strong as possible. These are the support musculature that I need for my big lifts. This is how we avoid getting hurt. This is what lets us continue to build strength and have a stable platform to squat and pull with those muscles, right? So I need to train those. This is also how you prevent hamstring tears. If you train your hamstrings, again, glute ham raises, train your erectors, your lower back with everything from good mornings to hyperextensions, you dramatically cut down your chances of hamstring tears. I've heard numerous coaches tell me that over the years. Look what happened. I quit doing good mornings, and I also pulled a hamstring, which you guys remember about 3 years ago. I put a picture up of my black hamstring, and it healed on its own. I was back to deadlifting again within a week. But I totally pulled a hamstring to the point to where it bruised, about an 8-inch bruise down my leg. Just deadlifting, like a normal work set with about 505, right? Pulled a hamstring. So again, this is how you prevent these things. Train your hamstrings, train your lower back. That's how you prevent hamstring injuries. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.